Welcome, everybody, to Dead Talk Live. Tonight we are joined by writers, directors Vincent and James Coleman from their new movie, The Burned Over District. Guys, welcome to the show. Congratulations on the film. I hope you're all doing well. I'm excited to talk about the film. Obviously, you guys are brothers. I have to ask, who's the older of the two?
I'm the older brother. James is a year difference. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm a year younger. He's a year older than me.
oh, that's cool. You guys are very close in age. So I got to ask you, growing up, being so close in age, how did your passion for filmmaking begin?
Um, at 12 years old, we decided to make a movie with our friend's grandpa's VHS camera.
Let's get right to it. James, the movie, The Burned Over District, is based on events that happened in Western New York in the 1800s. What can you tell us about the real events that inspired your film?
Over District came about because of him watching a documentary, and I was basically writing a script about a cult, but the direction of the cult really wasn't clear, and it didn't necessarily have a real pathway that it was going down. So, what the Burned Over District is the surrounding areas of upstate New York, where right around the time of the advent of the Erie Canal, which is the late 1800s, there was an uprising of religious movements. And
Mm-hmm.
again, it was the Jehovah's Witness, the Mormons, the Fox Sisters, and several more. And our idea was, what if one of these religions stuck around throughout the centuries, kind of undetected? And if you've ever been to upstate New York, there's a lot of towns and a lot of exits you can get off when you're on the throughway and the highway where you enter a town that kind of seems forgotten, almost like a memory.
Yeah.
And you start to ask, how do people make any money here? What do people do here? And there's usually a church and a couple of houses scattered around. And there's always a gas station that feels,
Like
if you
some
walk into it, it's like you always tell yourself, I'm probably going to get killed if I go in here. So we wanted to incorporate that really uncomfortable feel of a small town where I guess it's just kind of forgotten by time.
Exactly, exactly. Now, Vincent, the film revolves around brother and sister, uh, Will and Katie Pleasance. Now, the film starts off straight off with a tragedy involving Will, and then we start to see his arc develop and build. How did you guys approach developing Will's character? That was for Vincent.
He said, How do we approach developing our own character? I'm sorry, we're gonna have to repeat the question.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
can you give us one sec to kind of figure out this technical thing? This is a little bit of a pain here because of the live feed.
Well, let me see if I can. Let's do this. Hold on. Maybe I can help on my end here. Let me see. Does that make it better for you guys? Is that a little better?
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Vincent, when it came time to create Will's character, how did you guys approach it? What were some of your influences behind his character?
Well, we put a lot of ourselves into the characters. Honestly, a lot of things. I think a lot of writers do that where they not necessarily insert themselves into the story. That's a big mistake. But a lot of things we went through in our lives, we try to kind of pull from that. And we see the sister has a lot of turmoil and animosity with her mother, and she doesn't necessarily seem like she cares too much about what's going on with her brother. And not to say that's our mother, but we know people that are like that,
Mm-hmm.
and we like that dynamic where you feel like you can never really make someone happy. And that was actually the thought behind Katie's character is that Katie, no matter what she could do, was never good enough for anybody. Even though she was so kind and giving and trying to be there for her brother, and even trying to navigate, doing that with her mother around, who just seems to be miserable and can never please her. And we wanted to have that. Although it's not said, there's an implication that the parents are divorced and they never got along anyways, and it kind of
Yeah.
falls onto the children. And that's why our main character Will has moved away. He doesn't want to be around them. You don't really see him interact much with his mother at all because, yeah, I guess it's just
Well,
really not what he wants to do. It's just something he's trying to get away from.
and my impression of the mother is she's a very mean woman. I mean, not the warmest of mothers out there. She's kind of cold-hearted in how she regards other people, and I think that plays big in how Will's character and Katie's develop because it gave me a background into how these two people became the way they were. Now, Vincent, this film has quite a few different elements: Native American lore, paranormal phenomenon. How did you guys try to balance all these different elements into the film?
To actually answer your first question, Katie and Will's relationship is so close because when you grow up in a situation like that where your parents aren't necessarily emotionally there for you and kind of nasty, and you're always kind of looking for that validation, that you end up getting very close with your siblings. And that's really what we wanted the film to be about, is the relationship between the brother and sister. But to go off what you're saying with the elements, that's one thing we talked about. Is we originally approached it with, we want to do one of those films that's kind of a slow burn, kind of like a contemporary ghost story in the beginning, a horror story where, you know, you're discovering some weird things, and is it what we think it is? Is it ghosts? Is it demonic? Is it just crazy people? But the thought always was we wanted to turn up the craziness to 100, and there was going to be that shift no matter what in the middle of the film, where it goes from the lighting is very calm and normal and just a regular life type thing, and then as things get crazy, you know, you get into that neon kind of insanity where the lighting is crazy, and then all the things you're seeing are crazy, and it's like almost like it's basically a dream turned into a nightmare,
like a cosmic dream. Like we took a lot of inspiration from like Mandy,
Color Out of Space, but the original opening, like the first, I'd say 30 to 40 minutes are very much like an A24 film, where it's very, you know, things are happening, but it's at a very slow pace where you're really getting to know the characters and seeing these things happen to them before things turn up to 100.
Yeah, yeah. Now, in the film, very prominent on Will's property is this big hole in the ground, okay? Now, that can be seen representing the paranormal aspect. The lore behind it is Native American. For you guys writing that into the script, what is that big hole in the back of Will's property? What does that mean? And how does it ultimately affect the outcome of how this story, where this story is being taken?
So ultimately, the hole is supposed to represent. It's supposed to represent. I don't know how to explain this the best way, but the hole is basically a man-made creation of evil, and what that is when the character says to him, "It'll make you see things that aren't real," and that they used to discard the evil that lived amongst them. What we kind of interpreted as the burned over district, when hearing the actual history of it, is all these religious movements popping up. Back in the creation even of Christianity, Judaism, there was always these prophets that claimed they were hearing the voice of God or being sent messages from God. So our thought was, whatever this hole is, whether they really are hearing it or not, that something is telling them to do something. And that's kind of what we thought is happening around the area of upstate New York. So what was coming from this pit was voices and demands and people telling them that we want rituals, we want baptisms, and other places, maybe the natives before them, they knew what it was more so than the settlers did. So what they heard was, this is where to put the evil, send them, cast them down, cast them into this hell. So all of these evil dead people that had been thrown down there created an evil that fed into this cosmic force. And there was a lot of Mayan influences in that as well, like the rituals that you see. And
there's a particular scene where a ceremony is being held by the cult. Let's call them a cult for now. And we see the women faint to the ground, but the men are kept standing. What is the significance of that? Why do the women fall and the men remain standing?
To be honest, that was kind of there's an answer to that. Do you know what? Yeah, go ahead. You wrote that part.
So really what it is these messages, these voices, this calling that they're getting, it's very orgasmic for the women, because women are the ones who bear the children, and that's what the cult is continuing to try to keep their beliefs alive, and obviously as time goes on that dwindles and people aren't necessarily into it. So when you have these kids you can indoctrinate at such a young age, and these women now are actually hearing that. As you see later on, Fred's daughter says, "I'm sorry, you're as blind as the rest of them," because it is a calling that only they're able to see at these exact moments throughout these rituals that most people can't. So when Katie and Will are actually being called to it, it's special. They're basically what these prophets are. They're the ones that don't need the ritual. They don't need to be brought in. They're actually already hearing it. They're already open to it spiritually to be a part of whatever this is.
Okay. Now, Vincent, this cult has existed for hundreds of years. Are we supposed to take like the leader of this cult? Is he a madman, or does he have a real connection to the other side, some kind of cosmic connection, or is he just like real life cult leaders that we see today that are power hungry and they're just crazy?
We wanted the audience to feel like he was crazy in the beginning, but then we decided early in the movie to see that he actually wasn't when you saw that beam scene with the hole, because we wanted you to feel the lead character's reaction to seeing something, that they couldn't explain. So they, in the back of their heads, it's like they know something's going on, but they still are trying to save each other and figure it out. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. James, there's another scene when Will is captured and he's being drugged towards that pit. He's sort of splayed out in this biblical crucifixion style. I'm assuming that was done deliberately. Am I correct?
Yeah, actually, the whole character breakdown, we kind of wanted to have a Christ figure and then kind of an antichrist. So Daniel Danson and Will, and you have Daniel Danson with the darker facial hair, the longer hair, but they look similar but contrasting. And yes, I mean, there's a lot of Christ-like references when you pay attention to it. He's splayed out, the white shirt, the hair's down, the beard. He's stabbed in the abdomen,
Yeah.
tossed into the hole, and then there's a rebirth where he comes back, and it's like, that, how Christ returned eventually.
Yeah, I totally get it. Now, there's a moment where the mother goes into a room and she is followed by a hooded figure very quickly. It reminded me of The Exorcist 3 in that very, very scary moment. Who came up out of you two with that idea to sort of pay tribute to The Exorcist 3?
That was, I'll have to take credit on that one, even though we really do think of all the ideas together. That was a really cool scene to me, because you weren't expecting that long take that went on forever to someone to come out with, I forgot, was it like
hedge clippers or
hedge
something?
clippers or shears or whatever you call them? But that scene always stuck with me since I was like 7 years old.
It has stuck with a lot of
movie,
people,
so.
Yeah, that was definitely a moment. Yeah, because I remember there's certain moments you remember in horror films, and that's one of those that always, hey, you remember that awesome scene in Exorcist 3? And I was like, why not do something similar to that? Because at this point, we didn't show any cult, and I think a lot of what we want to do is a misdirection, where we didn't want people to know really what this movie was. So when you see that quick moment of this big guy come on and grab her, you're really asking, what the hell is happening now? Like, because there's really no indication of this yet.
Yeah, and I'm with you in The Exorcist 3. That scene is still talked about today in being scary and just coming out of nowhere. Would you guys describe this group? Are they a cult per today's standards, or are they a legitimate religious group? How do you guys view them?
I would say to themselves, they are a legitimate religious movement, but to the outsider, they come out as some crazy cult. Like Fred says to them, it's this Danson family, and they've ruined the town with their insanity. They've been a staple in this town since the beginning of their conception, basically. Since the late 1800s, they've been around worshiping. So it's very well known in the town, but as an outsider like Katie and Will, to them, it's like, who are these crazy people and what are they doing? And we tried to show that a lot of the town is mixed in with them. A lot of the politicians, the police force are all a part of this, and they might not be living in the mansion or be part of the main cult, but they're believing the things that they're told. And a lot of them probably haven't seen what the main cult has seen. They haven't seen the portals open up. They haven't gotten the messages. So for them, it's just blind worship.
We kind of wanted them to seem like they were a family that's been in this old town for a long time, and they have no reason really to spread their religion, so that's why you did not hear of them. Like,
yeah,
like the other religions that spread their word. They only, you only hear of them when you're about to be sacrificed.
Now, before we go, I have one final question. Katie is referred to by them as the chosen one. Uh, the way the movie plays out, it's sort of left up to the viewer to sort of kind of figure out why they think she is the chosen one. I want to hear your guys' opinion. You wrote the characters. Why do they think Katie is the chosen one?
So to play off more of is Daniel crazy? So they believe very much in destiny. As he says to Will, I've seen you before, and this has always been your fate. So when Katie stumbles upon them at the gas station and he meets her, he sees a new woman in town. He sees a new person that he believes his gods have brought to him. And then when they're performing that ritual, something called to her and brought them out to her.
Mm-hmm.
For him to see that, they think, okay, they chose you. And in this void of existence, they gave you this gift of sight. You can see it, you can hear it. You saw what happened. And in his arrogance, when they go to capture her, to bring her in, they take her brother and he says to him, what are the voices? What's down there? And in his arrogance, he doesn't realize that Will is the one that heard this too. So they are actually the chosen ones together. It's supposed to be them two who rule together.
Yeah.
And in his arrogance, he stabs him, casts him into this hole. And the beings that he says they look at us as playthings, they spit him back out without his knowledge that it's now a part of him. So when he comes back out, the whole destiny, his fate was to eradicate the cult and become their leader, ultimately. And then he offers. So when he keeps saying you're no longer tethered to your earthly attachments, so him still being alive keeps Katie from being able to fully rule until he becomes that being at the end when.
Yeah.
Basically, Daniel Danson, like, he pissed off the gods and, decided he wanted to be the one man with all these women surrounding him, but that's not what they wanted, and he got what he deserved.
Exactly.
Yeah, so instead of the cult worshiping their I don't want to say it's a god, it's a cosmic force.
Yeah, it's like a deity.
Instead of worshiping them, he wanted them to worship him.
Mm-hmm.
So when God was presented to him, he broke to his knees screaming, God, please, like from life to death, screaming to God. And then his God is actually comforting him. But if you pay attention, Will spits up blood right before he gouges eyes. It's Will. Oh, what's left of Will doing that?
Yeah.
What's left of his soul is still allowing him to have some control.
We wanted to make it seem like Will had a choice there. He could have, had Daniel Danson still in that group, but he decided he was through with him after all that he put him through. So
exactly, and it's the ultimate story. The fall of man is pride. Guys, I want to thank you so much again. The movie is called The Burned Over District. We don't have a premiere date yet for the public, but it should be coming out soon. Written and directed by our guests, Vincent and James Coleman. When it does come out, check it out. This film is very interesting. It's bloody. We didn't get to talk about the amount of gore and blood, but it's a great story. Lots of action, lots of blood. So congratulations to both of you guys on the film. I want to thank our audience, those of you who are tuning in live, and those of you who'll be watching later on. On behalf of our guests, Vincent and James Coleman, and myself, stay safe, stay walking. Good night, everybody.
All right. Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you. It's been great.